Welcome, everyone. My name's Julia Damchek, and I will be your Northwood University webinar host today. Our guest is President Kent MacDonald with his special presentation titled Restoring Higher Education with Ideals That Built a Free Nation. In the past few months, Northwood has experienced a wave of national attention. Some of you may have noticed, not only for our achievements, but for the enduring ideas that make Northwood truly distinct. Drawing from his nationally recognized America Fest presentation, President MacDonald will explore how the Northwood Idea can help renew confidence in higher education and prepare the next generation of leaders. He will also share how these ideals connect directly to Northwood's vision and the future and the exciting opportunities ahead. Our presentation will be around 30 minutes long, and we're going to leave some time for Q&A. So be sure to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please note that we'll also be recording this and sending this out to you tomorrow. So you'll all have the recording to share with others if you'd like. Okay, at this time, it's my pleasure to welcome the president of Northwood University, Dr. Kent MacDonald. He's been our president since 2019 and is globally recognized scholar focusing on what makes universities great. Welcome, President MacDonald.
Thanks, Julie, and good afternoon, everyone. I see Steve Medencia has joined us from London. So wherever you're coming from, I'll just share with you that it's a beautiful day in Midland. It's about 75 degrees. The flowers are just starting to come up through the ground now, and it's all time for you to come back and see this campus. Before I get into the presentation, I'll just say Stephen Covey wrote a book a long time ago, and it said, start with the end in mind. And I am going to start with the end in mind by sharing that I feel at this moment in the history of higher education, this is the Northwood moment. I do believe that. And we have a Turning Point USA chapter. It's very active here on this campus. And so it was a real blessing for me to have the opportunity to address an audience in Phoenix just before Christmas. And in that audience was a reporter from Fox News who asked to meet with me afterwards. His name is Peter, and we had a good conversation. And so the slide that you have in front of you now, I wonder if I could just have it brought up so I could see it, Dale. That'd be great. Thank you, sir. And Dale and Dan, thanks for always putting this together. You guys are amazing. So what came out of that, I spoke for about 50 minutes, and then I was able to take questions afterwards. And the reporter met. He wanted to do a story. He did the story, and Julie's actually going to put the URL in the messages, but you can also copy it down there as well. It was a decent article, I thought, for us. There's about a 10 or 11-minute video, and it's a 50-minute discussion that I've tried to condense down here for you today into 3 parts. So the next slide, if I could, Dale. So before I do speak to people, I like to give some biases. So when I'm talking in this particular topic about the issues that I have with higher education today and why I do think it's Northwood's moment, some of the biases that I have is that I don't think it's socialism. I don't think it's communism. I don't think it's big government. I think it's free enterprise that promotes economic and social prosperity, and being really intentional around the social prosperity, that it is what floats all boats to the top. And we have several hundred years of experience of that. This move that we're seeing right now across the country, across the world, should be a concern to everyone who believes in freedom and liberty and prosperity, unless you'd like to be under the control of a small group of people who fundamentally think they're just a little bit smarter than us. I do think that the nature of life is I will never be a basketball player. The equal outcomes in life are not real. But I do believe in opportunity. That's why scholarships are important. How do we make an education at a place like Northwood available to anyone who wants to live the values of the Northwood Idea. I also think that limited government is what unleashes people. And a lot of you online you remember reading The Pencil and your experiences here on this campus. Those are some of the things that really drive me. And so we'll just transition in this slide to sum up that fundamentally, I'm doing a lot of reading on Stoicism these days, that ancient philosophy with Epictetus and Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. But Epictetus here, I would agree with him that fundamentally freedom is the only worthy goal in life. Out of our freedom, we can do what we want. We can thrive or not thrive. It's up to us, and we need to do all that we can to maintain that freedom. So on the next slide, I have a second bias. Again, I had several others in the presentation, but in my view, right now, what I see coming out of many universities across this country, literally around the world, is a new generation. They're disillusioned. They are not being given the tools they need to succeed. In fact, they're burdened with fewer tools to build rewarding lives, or in a way that allows them to contribute meaningfully to society. Juxtapose that with Northwood University. I see it every day, and people say, "Well, can't you get paid to say nice things?" Well, not when I have the opportunity to hear from employers to say the only people that we want to hire this year are Northwood students. They have the technical academic aspects covered, but it's their character, their desire to work. They understand that success comes through working hard and grit and sometimes failing. But I think that the reason that our students are in high demand and ready to lead, some of them, a third of them will own their own company someday, and others will have a meaningful role leading organizations. Fundamentally, I think that they're being provided those ideals that built a free nation, which takes us into the next slide and really what this whole topic was that I spoke in Phoenix. So how do we restore higher education with the ideals that built a free nation? I think those ideals are reflected at Northwood, but there are two sections that I'd like to share with you today. So the next slide takes us into the first one, and that I refer to this as the higher education shakeout. It should be alarming that every single week in this country, we are losing a college or university to closure. And there's lots of reasons for that. So let's just explore what some of those things are on the next slide. If you look at the number of people who are enrolled in 2010, if I were to take you back to the Obama administration where they had laid out, we need an exponential growth and target setting in terms of the number of people who have gone through higher education. We've actually gone in the wrong direction, that we have a decrease in the number of people participating in higher ed. And for those of us in the Midwest and the Northeast, that decrease is exacerbated, particularly for those groups of people who had traditionally gone to university. Another example in terms of data is on the next slide. And when you start to break down, well, who is participating and who is not participating? What I told the audience that day is that if these were reversed in terms of male and female, there would probably be a presidential inquiry over it. But because if you look in 1960, 54% of young men were going off to college. Today it's 57%. So essentially, there has been no increase at all. The good news is we are getting more young women to participate in higher education, which is obviously a good thing. The question that we have to ask ourselves, and I've subsequently been interviewed by some people on my thoughts on this, is what is happening to the young men? And my conclusion is it's not necessarily what's happening just on colleges and universities, but we have a significant issue in the K-12 system, how we're not preparing young men to want to participate, that the way we've structured our educational system is zapping any of the spirit that a lot of young men have, and they're just not coming to colleges and universities anymore. That is not only an economic issue, but the lack of social prosperity for those young people, the lack of them to live a full life should be on a lot of people's minds. I am not a believer that every single person has to go to university. I think that is absolutely the wrong way to look at this. We need to be sitting down with young people, men and women today, and ask them, what is it that you want to do? I'll tell you, community colleges are saving us with the young men, that their participation rates are significantly higher. And that's a good thing. We should be thankful for the community colleges. Those people who want to go out and work, that's not a bad thing necessarily either. But writ large, uh, the changes from high school to college, and the decline of people wanting to participate in higher ed is an issue facing us, contributing to the shakeout that I referred to earlier. So Dale, the next slide, there is a crisis of confidence in higher education. When we talk about why are people not participating, it is not just about the increased cost, although I could spend an hour with you to share some of my thoughts on that. The next slide will actually show us that people no longer are having, a good portion of people are no longer having the same level of confidence that they did just 10 years ago. If you see the drop of that people, those who had a great deal of confidence a decade ago, not 50 years ago, a decade ago, has gone from 58% to 36%. Some of those people, in terms of have some higher confidence in higher education, has pretty well stabled, and very little confidence in higher education has actually increased to a third of the people in this country don't believe it. So then I'm asked with a data set like this, so why is that? Is that just, Republicans? No, it's not. The next slide will show us that that certainly there's been a dramatic fall among Republicans, but there's also been a fall among Democrats and independents. So overall, we're at a point now that I never thought that I would see in my lifetime in higher education, where we are having a significant level of concern about higher education. Its cost, the outcomes, what's being taught on these campuses. Is it an ideological experience, or do we need to get back to the fundamentals? So the next slide, when we ask why is it, 41% of those individuals, and you can choose more than just one, they say that the universities across the country are too liberal. They're indoctrinating young people. Number two is that the content is no longer relevant, and that's been exacerbated over the last year, really, 3 years since this new version of AI has been around since 1957 or 56, where it started. It was first coined at Dartmouth College. But the power of generative AI is causing some people to question, is the content even relevant anymore, or am I just going to take a lot of debt? That leads us to the third point in terms of the cost is too high and the ROI, and then a lot of other things. So the one news at the bottom of the note that I think it's important to point out to our friends in the community college system is, for some reason, Americans generally are more confident in two-year institutions across affordability and value and learning and good job opportunities, safety, quality, which I think a lot of universities should think about. I don't have a lot of hope that there will be a lot of change, and I'll share some of the reasons for that. So next slide, Dale. One of these items, Kyla Scanlon, I don't know Kyla, but I found some of her writing to be quite interesting. There was a point, particularly in the 50s and the GI Bill in the 60s, and even into the early 2000s, where we just assumed that we could make an investment, go to college, and that there would be some positive outcome. There would be predictable progress for that individual to do better in their life when they were finished. We don't have that anymore. The number of young people, 18 to 24, who are unemployed is way too high right now. It's causing people, even when they start at college, to question, do I want to keep going and take on more debt? So the predictable progress at a higher education degree entitles you to some greatness. In some ways, I would say it's a good thing. And I say that because it will cause people to question of what program am I actually taking? How much money am I spending? And I need to start to realize that nothing is guaranteed. Uh, the results of Northwood on employment, return on investment, I think we are now an outlier from a lot of universities from all the programs that we offer compared to a lot of them being delivered today. Next slide. So to end the first section, that there is this higher education shakeout. It's happening. That like any business sector, people are not buying the product anymore. Companies are closing, and people are starting to question the value. Which takes me to the second theme that I talked about in Phoenix. And that is, there's been a lot of assumption that this is a new phenomena, and it's not. There is a long arc to the dilemma that we're faced today. Next slide, Dale. One of our visiting professors last year, Gad Sad, he summarized what a lot of us are thinking about what's happening on campuses today when he says, one simple example of trigger warnings. Right, so I'm going to warn you the things that I'm going to talk about might be uncomfortable because something in your history. And Gad would go on to say trigger warnings infantilize human resilience by coddling young adults into thinking that they do not possess the psychological strength to face life. Part of uh, the reason people should be coming to colleges and universities is to prepare them for life. The fact that we have to give these warnings, the fact that people might get upset about a topic that a professor is speaking about, that's antithesis to what a university was meant to do. On top of that, you're going to see some data shortly that even if the individual in the class wanted to have a counter position, often that is stifled in terms of the dialogue that occurs on these campuses. I have said often that if a student comes to Northwood and our faculty don't have a topic that they don't agree with, in other words, it makes them feel uncomfortable, then if they're not uncomfortable during their time here at Northwood, then we've probably failed them. That employers today are looking for individuals with grit and resilience and understanding that success only comes through hard work and it has to be earned. Those are the actual non-academic qualities that we're being told by employers that they need, and they're unable to find people, which takes me back to one of my earlier comments. It is an incredible set of proof points that this small place in Midland, Michigan continues to attract employers, not because we teach the 4 Ps of marketing any differently, but because of the full roundedness of the experience that they're being provided at Northwood is exactly what it is that employers would like. And in fact, because technology and things are moving so quickly, a lot of our employers are telling us, look, if there's some gaps academically, we can take care of those. We want people who will show up on time, who will be prepared to work hard. And, as John Washbish, one of our alum recently said, the reason I want Northwood grads is that they're prepared to work hard and make money. And but Gad, by the way, if we this should transition as well, Dale. His new book is getting a lot of profile, including with Elon Musk at the top. So keep an eye out for this. We hope to have Gad back on campus at some point, and with his new book, Suicidal Empathy. I've pre-ordered mine, and we're happy that his 2-year journey of this book is just about finished. So next slide. Thomas Sowell, one of the great economists. I think Dr. Sowell might be 93, 94 years old. I've actually a picture of him on my wall over there. I just think he's one of the great minds of our time. he would ask anytime that people give counter positions of is it real in terms of ideological indoctrination happening on campus? He would say the next time some academic tells you how important diversity is, ask how many Republicans there are in their sociology department. You're going to hear a quote shortly from Yale, and they don't have any. Most don't. And that's just not in sociology. It goes across the plethora of various liberal arts programming, and we have data to support that. Next slide. So I would not quite sum this up, but I do think the issue that we're being faced today, even though the arc is long, these challenges have existed for some time, which you're going to see shortly on the next slide. I would argue that this, by Greer and Horst, were right, that mission drift, this notion of preparing individuals at a university, this drift didn't happen overnight. It's the example that I gave when I was out in Phoenix was to take a little piece of paper, and it's almost like freedom that we're going to take a piece of it out, and then the next year the university is going to have some type of DEI initiative, and then they're going to have a special office only for a certain group of students, and then they're going to have trigger warnings. By the end of it, what's happened is you have this left. That's the issue that we're faced with in a lot of colleges today. So it's seldom dramatic or all at once. It's gradual. And how do they do it? It's a decision here this year. It's a hiring or non-hiring of someone. It's this gradual drift that all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you ask, what just has happened? That university is not the same place that I was, and it's something that we're particularly focused on at Northwood. We did the review of the Northwood Idea, and I can tell you we're in the middle of a strategic plan right now that we're going to test out we have hundreds of hours of input from my colleagues. We're going to be bringing it to the board at our winter meetings. We'll bring it back to the campus through the spring, and we'll hopefully get this approved at our board meeting in June. But I can tell you the theme that's bubbling up here is that we will not be all things to all people, and that we are going to focus extremely hard on what we do better than anyone else, and that is to make sure that people understand the value of free enterprise and capitalism and limited government and all those things around the Northwood Idea. And there will also be a strong element of a programmatic area that we do better than anyone, I would say globally, and that is in the automotive area, that multi-trillion-dollar industry. So we have a lot of work yet to do, but there will not be drift. I can tell all of the alum, because your degree is only as good as the quality of the graduate that comes out every year. And so we have to be really committed to who we are as an institution, and we won't appeal to everybody. That's fine. There's lots of other places that they can choose from, but what we can own is the space on free enterprise and what we believe in as an institution. So next slide. What's an example? This is what we're reading all the time that this has been going on. Next slide, Dale. And one more, please. Dale has the hardest job here. Look, in 1951, William F. Buckley, he was a student. Imagine being a student at Yale, not a graduate, but a student. He realized in 1951 that in his book, God and Man at Yale, he wrote that university, and his view is universities kind of writ large, were largely influenced by left-leaning professors who exploit academic freedom to advance their own ideological agendas. So ideology, their ideas, right? That can't be changed, and they're not based on fact. They're based on their ideas. So he wrote that as a student, and he, of course, went on to become a great commentator over the rest of his life. So you would imagine that in 1951, and this is why when people say, is there this can get changed, right? This is why it's going to be so difficult, that the infrastructure in universities from faculties and tenure and senates, those are so grounded that it's going to be very difficult. So that every year, if you could go to the next slide, Dale, that the Buckley Institute comes out and does a report on political diversity at various campuses. And so they just came out this fall with how is Yale doing, specifically around Yale. And next transition, Dale. They looked at 166 faculty and out of the 43 undergraduate departments, 82.3% of those faculty were registered Democrats, 2.3 were registered Republicans, and the rest were independents. There's It is impossible to think that that ideological leaning doesn't make its way into the social conversations that occur within a classroom and on campus. And for all intents and purposes, I just don't see a way that these institutions, because of the way they hire, the faculty hiring committees, they hire people like themselves that think like themselves, and that's why nothing has changed at a place iconic, uh, world-class university like Yale in some of the programs, has changed since in the 1950s. So the next slide. The outcome of this, to end this second section, is that universities have been shaped not by days or weeks or months or years, but decades-long cultural, student, and technological shifts. These are not sudden events, and that they are deeply rooted in history. When I spoke to the reporter from Fox, my message was one of hope. But as again, trying to be a better thinker and person based on Stoicism. The fundamental premise of Stoicism is what can you control? And you cannot control things that happen around you. You can only control your own thoughts, and then those thoughts lead to actions. My hope is that is first and foremost that Northwood is going to be advancing itself. Our greatest days are ahead of us, and I firmly believe that, and that those institutions that do not are able to make some of these changes are going to have difficulty in the days ahead. So the next slide will lead us into the real question that higher education needs to do is, if we remember back to Cortez when he arrived in Mexico, it's a question of, is higher education prepared to burn the ships? I would probably say no, most. Next slide, please. So that brought me into restoring higher education with the ideals that build a free nation. I spent most of my time on that morning on this section talking about Northwood, proudly talking about Northwood, what we stand for, the quality of the pedigree of our graduates and alumni and what they're doing to make their communities more prosperous, the values, how they're rooted back into what the founders thought this country should be. And so the next slide, Dale. Um, uh, as a group of alum and supporters that the Northwood Idea, I spend a lot of time speaking to them, probably 5 or 6 minutes of those 50 on what it is that we stand for. It will transition here, Dale. These are all very aware to this particular audience, and I was able to talk about my bias that I started out with is freedom, limited government, private property, and private property, just a reminder, private property isn't the land that our house is on. Private property goes much deeper, that the money that I earn, I should be the one who decides how much of that I should keep. I mean, we all have to pay taxes. It allows to have great police, great roads, those types of things. But those things that we own and earn, we need to have more control of. The rule of law, of course, and of course, our fundamental differentiator is the power of free enterprise, pre-markets, capitalism, etc. The next slide. I'm just keeping an eye, Julie. I also spoke significantly on what we believe in. I would encourage all of you to come to this campus starting on March 20th. We are kicking off the most going to be the most wonderful 250th anniversary set of celebrations that I think that any university will be able to have. It will all-day event starting on the 20th. There's a concert that night, and we'll have a series of activities throughout the spring, summer, and fall. On Constitution Day, we're going to be having a large event again. For those of you who don't know, we stand right out there and give out copies of the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution to our students as a reminder on that day of the privilege that we have to be in this country and the values that we should be living for. And we are unapologetic as well in terms of the imagery on this campus. If you haven't been back recently, the lower right-hand corner, that's Griswold. I spoke to this audience about the pride in the American flag, that we stand for the American flag and everything it represents. And we also acknowledge as a university that this is not a country that's perfect yet. Our job is to be positive contributors to that as opposed to simply critique and whine and offer no substantive improvements to move us on our journey. Next slide. So we have a choice as a group of people, as leaders of universities, as graduates, as citizens, is that we can be stewards of liberty and everything that that stands for, or we can continue down this path of being ideological drifters. And that has been occurring. I could take you back into the 30s and 20s. In fact, some quotes in the late 1800s of people having early concerns of what we saw on campuses. But it's a major issue. And when people say, why are young people having so much doubt about universities or are not participating, and they're from the academy, I would say we have done this to ourselves in terms of how we have drifted, and we're causing people to question the even purpose of a university. Northwood is not going down that path, and as alum, we want to hear from you. And you'll hear more from us, particularly the new strategic plan. So next slide. I do say that Northwood University is a university as it was meant to be, and almost to the end, Dale. I was down in West Virginia. Bill Cole is a proud alumnus who ran for governor of West Virginia. He's a great businessman. He was on our campus. He's a supporter of the university, and sitting in his beautiful office in West Virginia, he said, Kent, the reason I got into, he's no longer in politics, but the reason I got into politics and became a senator and ran as the governor is that my concern what was going on not only in state but on across the country and on campuses. And then he said this to me, which I've quoted him a lot. He said, the most amazing thing is all these years people would talk to me about, well, where's Northwood? Where is it? And people would have doubts of, okay, well, how does it fit within higher ed? And Bill said to me, Kent, the greatest thing is this is Northwood's time. This is our time as an institution after all of these years. I'm going to get behind it, and other people need to get behind it, and our alumni need to be proud of it. So I do believe that this is Northwood's time, and proud to continue to serve our faculty, staff, and students, and happy to take any questions that we might have, Julie. I think that's it, Dale. Just try one more. That's it. Yep. Good. So almost landed
Okay.
the plane on time, Julie.
No, that's perfect. So far we've got one question. Just a reminder, there's a Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. Type any of your questions in there. First one is from Douglas Keith. What role has social media and AI played in the downfall of our young men and their ambition?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, there are lots of data points out there in terms of social media is a beautiful platform. The difficulty with it, and Senator Hawley has written about it in terms of his concerns around big tech. And it's not as much AI as it is the algorithm within those social media platforms that continue to create echo chambers and perpetuate. People are seeing the same thing over and over and over. And we've all experienced that. I'm talking about wanting to eat oranges on a beautiful day, and then all of a sudden I get orange advertisements showing up on my phone. So I don't have any real data to show that it's been a direct line in terms of how young men are participating or not participating. But I do think that social media writ large, I mean, it's why I'm a little concerned about AI as well. The generative agentic AI platforms and tools that we have now that are going to, I mean, even 18 months from now, I think it's going to be incredibly more powerful tools. But how they're used is a concern based on the algorithms that's driving what people are, is being generated and seen. The good news with that notion, though, is we can also flip it the other side. Murray Kite and Rachel Baldessari and their team from marketing, it is an area that we'll be putting more focus on in terms of using them to get our message out, and hopefully we are able to get more young and women, quite frankly, to be able to understand Northwood and what we can do for them. It's a complex. I love the question, so thank you.
Okay, next question. This comes from Chris Deming, an alum in North Carolina. Are there things that potential higher ed competitors have that Northwood needs?
Yeah, I would say that's from North Carolina, by the way. Our son Patty, a Northwood grad, all fall, all fall. I was getting pictures of him wearing shorts on how beautiful the weather it was in North Carolina. So I take some joy in seeing North Carolina have a little bit of cold temperature right now. But I've no more pictures from Patty. So I would say there's a few things that they have. Some of them, particularly the publics, many of the publics are too big to fail. If you look at the data in Michigan and the number of decreases that are occurring in terms of enrollment, they have no fear. Government's not going to shut them down. That's an advantage, I suppose, if and it's a downfall to them because they have no urgency. Some of them have no urgency to want to change. Another benefit is, look, we have as many graduates of this amazing school right now through our history of almost 70 years, graduates. I could go down the highway 2 hours and find the same amount of students as we've had graduates in 70 years as they have on their campus right now. And then you extrapolate that out, the amount of giving that they have is significantly higher. We're in the middle of a $100 million campaign. We're making good progress. The consultants said, oh, the best you're going to do is raise 80 million. We're not. We're going to blow through that. We're going to surpass $100 million. We need people that if they are serious about free enterprise and capitalism and limited government, we need more people giving to this university. I mean, that's part of my job, but I had a call this week. We'll be making a big announcement shortly that we had someone who was not as engaged as maybe as they would have liked to be. And like Bill Cole, they said the reason I'm giving back is that we need Northwood. This country needs Northwood. Right? If you drive up to 75, Rachel and her team now have a big billboard there that says America needs Northwood graduates, and I agree with that. So that's another big advantage that they have. And the rest of it, I would say that, the four P's of marketing are the same. The advantage we have on them, though, is our values and our culture and our history and what we stand for, and our ability to be very nimble. Some of you may not know this. If you're a tenured professor, unless the institution, for all intents and purposes, normally there's a clause within their bylaws in terms of financial exigency, and you never want to pull that trigger on financial exigency because it sends a message that you're in trouble. Those faculty are not going away. Oh, there's no one signing up for X program. They'll be underwritten by the public, the taxpayers, and the other high-performing programs. You may not know this, that all my colleagues, including the one I'm looking at right now, Julie, they sign one-year contracts. We're all on one-year contracts. We have no tenure. And what people would say, well, that would make work fairly precarious, isn't it? And it doesn't. What it does do is it attracts the people who want to be part of a culture like this. And number two is it makes people behave. You look, I get lots of people giving me ideas, but you can't be a jerk at Northwood. You have to understand this is a civil group. We're colleagues. I'd say we're friends. And what are we going to do to advance it? It's the first thing that I came to Northwood that I couldn't stop hearing about family and community. And I think that makes us very, very special. And it should be able to attract people. Look, we have a professor. I won't disclose who he is. He's fantastic. Uh, he was offered a big offer to go to a big public. He left us this fall. We didn't fill his position. He called us late fall and said, "These are my words. I need to get out of here. Will you please take me back?" And so he's back. So that's something very special that we have is that people come onto this campus. They want to work hard. They go beyond the call of duty, and they're good to one another. And so that's a special gift.
I agree with you. All right, last question here. This is from Drew Sin. He is dad, a father of current student here at Northwood. What part of suicidal empathy, the theory, has the most impact on the Northwood idea?
Wow, just let me process that. It might be so let me just frame suicidal empathy that Dr. Gad Sad talks about. It's um, that we have so much empathy that we allow groups of people into the country who don't believe in our values. He would talk about that that we have so much empathy that we allow behaviors to occur and people not to be I'll exaggerate that do something very bad. You put that in your own frame of mind. They go to the court system and then they're released without any bail provisions because I've got great empathy for that person. So, in other words, the empathy leads to the suicide of Gad would talk about the Western civilization and others. Douglas Murray and others have written about that as well. So that's what the book is. So, in light of my interpretation, I've not read Gad's book, but I've had lots of conversations with him. Maybe personal responsibility, and I go through the Northwood idea in terms of um, rule of law and limited government, free enterprise, personal, private property, probably personal responsibility might be the right one. We don't spell it out, but common sense, being able to have character, being able to say what's the value of what is right and what is wrong. A lot of my decisions come from even when they get to be complex. I'm a fairly simple person. I ask the question, okay, what's right and what's wrong here? I know we've got, previous decisions around this, but at this moment, what's the right decision? What's the wrong decision? So it might not, it's a hard question for me. I'd love to hear your opinion on it or anyone else in terms of one specific thing. I would say, though, the reason Northwood has such an incredible success record on producing leaders, producing entrepreneurs, producing people who believe in the country, who believe in their ability to make a difference or go mad, go make a difference. It's not a course. It's not a lecture. It's a whole ecosystem that individuals experience here. We don't produce entrepreneurs because as much as I love our entrepreneurship program and Jim over there and others, it's not that course that makes an entrepreneur. It's the whole idea of telling people and convincing them that they have a hope and a heart and a dream and whatever it is that they want to do, they have the capacity to do it. And that so you're going to be hearing, for example, drifting a little bit from the question, but I hope you can see it comes back to, suicidal empathy. We're going to be launching a financial tool this year. We have raised over $3 million. People like you on the call who have gave us that money. We endow that money so it's ours forever in perpetuity. We spin that out at 4.5%, produces about 100, rounded off to $130,000 cash a year. We're making those dollars of cash available to students to help them start their own companies. So that's the type of ecosystem that you need if you're going to believe in free enterprise. Um, we have, you're going to hear shortly, a donor who deeply believes in capitalism. And so we're going to name something and do some investment for us to amplify our belief that capitalism under the free enterprise banner is what will advance a country. So in terms of suicidal empathy, we should have another one of these, Julie. I'll read Gad's book and I'll give some better thought to it. It's a great question.
We can do that. We can do that. All right. Well, our time is up. So I just want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. MacDonald, for your presentation. Our next webinar is actually going to be with First Lady Mary Ellen McPhee, Kent's wife and our First Lady of Northwood University. She'll be hosting a webinar with us on February 12th. So hopefully you can all join us then. Again, thank you, and we hope to see you on our next webinar or at our next in-person event.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time. Come see us.